فاجعل اللهم مني مسلما.
وإلى المعروف أدعو من أجد وعن الإسلام يوما لم أحد
وإلى المعروف أدعو من أجد وعن الإسلام يوما لم أحد
وأرى المنكر لا أرضى به وأعري أهله أن وجد. وأرى المنكر لا.
If there's one lesson for Muslims to take out of this, it's to never be ashamed of the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because they're guidance for mankind. Uphold it with conviction, uphold it without fear or hesitation, and be proud of it. When you see them against the Sharia of Allah or the Qur'an, it's because they want to be like Epstein and their president. They don't want to elevate to the status of human beings. When they say they hate the Sharia of Allah, they're basically telling you, we want to live lower than animals. We don't want the status of humanity.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين.
And by the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on this day that we speak about this, the issue of the Epstein files comes up. What I highlighted shows how democracy violates the very essence of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. But it's flawed in every way you look at it, because it's rooted in human desire. It's not rooted in the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When it's rooted in human desire, what they condemn as immoral today may be legalized tomorrow. What they praise in one era may be denounced in the next. What's legal today may become illegal tomorrow, and the opposite, because it's man-made. Human beings are limited. They're biased. They're driven by desire. They're driven by a nafs al-ammara bis-su. They're driven by the shaitan. They're driven by personal interests and by power and wealth and ever-changing social trends. When freedom is not restrained by the Qur'an and Sunnah, the inevitable outcome is a nation of filth. Just like the nations that adopt secularism and democracy, wherever they may be. أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ الْخَبِيرُ. The Creator, Allah alone, knows what truly befits His creation. A system not governed by the guidance and laws from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a system that breeds people worse than animals. People whose desires have replaced the command of their Creator. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the world a glimpse to see how they are. He laid bare their true faces. A bunch of rapists and murderers of children. Never in the history have Muslims been massacred as they are in this era where democracy dominates. When it comes to Islam, their ideology reveals its true face. It's built on nifaq and violence. History will always remember, and the Muslims will always remember, that democracy is written in the blood of Gaza's children. And that's just only one of their many massacres. One of the many massacres in the era of democracy. Never has the earth seen an age more polluted in manners and morals than the age of democracy as well. If the people of Lut once engaged in same-sex relations, then on top of that today, in the democratic era, they no longer know their genders. They don't even know which restroom to use. Are these people in their ideologies something the giant, noble ummah of La ilaha illallah looks up to and follows? The astonishing part isn't what the recent scandals and files reveal. That's only the tip of the iceberg. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exposed about certain entities and individuals. The hidden depths of their filth is far greater. What's truly astonishing is that some Muslims seem surprised by this. What did you expect? Did you think that just because he's clean shaven and wearing a suit, he's pure with his shirk and man-made laws and his desires? Have you not read the Qur'an? When one's life and laws and habits are guided by their desires, can the result ever be anything but corruption? أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ وَأَضَلَّهُ اللَّهُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ وختم على سمعه وقلبه وجعل على بصره غشاوة فمن يهديه من بعد الله. Wallahi, this is true of everyone who bows to democracy and secularism and man-made laws and desires. أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. You see him who takes his own lust and desires as an ilah. Their desires are their laws. They took them as lords. وَأَضَلَّهُ اللَّهُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ وَخَتَمَ عَلَى سَمْعِهِ وَقَلْبِهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowing their condition, left them astray because they're unworthy of guidance because of what Allah knows of them. He sealed their ears and hearts and veiled their sight. Their hearts and their eyes and their ears seem human. They look human, but they're not. فَمَن يَهْدِيهِ مِن بَعْدِ اللَّهِ أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَقَدْ ذَرَأْنَا لِجَهَنَّمَ كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا وَلَهُمْ أَعْيُنٌ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ بِهَا وَلَهُمْ آذَانٌ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا أُولَئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ أُولَئِكَ هُمُ الْغَافِلُونَ. We have destined many jinn and humans for Jahannam. They have hearts. They have hearts. They look human. They have hearts. They don't understand with those hearts. They have eyes. They don't see with them. They have ears. They don't hear with them. They're like cattle. In fact, they're worse. They're less guided. They're heedless. How can you be surprised by their filth when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that those driven by their desires are worse than cattle, whether in their personal lives or in their secularist systems? Worse than them are those who claim to be from this ummah. The ones from this ummah or claim to be from this ummah, yet they abandon the beautiful, perfect system of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a corrupt system like theirs. Animals don't have a choice or understanding, but they still make good decisions. They try to avoid what harms them, and they try to chase what benefits them. They look for the best food. Those who live by their desires are worse than animals. They forsake what benefits them, and they chase what harms them. That's why they're worse than animals. Their concern, the animal's concern, is eating, drinking, and desires. These people who think they're human beings, their concern is eating, drinking, and desires. But they can't see what benefits them and what harms them. Unlike animals. Animals follow their owner and they show loyalty to their owner. These people, the people of desire, the ones who follow their desire, the ones who take their desire as a lord, they rebel against their owner and they defy him, Allah Jalla fi'ula. Animals believe while many humans disbelieve. And that's why Allah said, أُولَٰئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْغَافِلُونَ. When you witness such hatred toward the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you see them rise and protest against it, when they oppose it in every way, when they want to burn the Qur'an, when they hate the Sharia, you're seeing the hearts of the corrupt. They're doing it because they're people who choose a life of vice. They want to be like Epstein and their president and the leaders and entities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exposed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants them to embrace humanity, but they stubbornly cling to being worse than animals. So they hate the Sharia, they hate the Qur'an that will make them human beings, that will elevate them to the status of human beings. When freedom is separated from ubudiyyah to Allah, it becomes a gate to corruption. In Islam, freedom is disciplined. Islam frees human beings from ubudiyyah to desires and people. Islam binds one to ubudiyyah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, and that's true freedom. Freedom without the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and without the limits of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala plunges people into immorality. It leads to a life worse than the life of the animals. This is what you see in their democratic countries, in their secularist countries, and those who blindly idolize them from the so-called Muslims. When humans legislate for themselves, they destroy their lives. They enslave themselves to their desires. Without ubudiyyah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, only ubudiyyah to the shaitan, and one's desires remain. Under secularism, the fitrah is corrupted, the values are eroded, and the nafs and shaitan take over and take control. If there's one lesson for Muslims to take out of this, it's to never be ashamed of the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because they're guidance for mankind. Uphold it with conviction, uphold it without fear or hesitation, and be proud of it. When you see them against the Sharia of Allah or the Qur'an, it's because they want to be like Epstein and their president. They don't want to elevate to the status of human beings. When they say they hate the Sharia of Allah, they're basically telling you, we want to live lower than animals. We don't want the status of humanity. With this we'll conclude. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.